and model citizens of this country. The guilty party actively, and this administration and board actively conspire to reduce our contact with our students and course offerings, and finally dismantled our program, firing our director and colleagues. The guilty party must be held accountable and monitored very closely for its history of immoral actions. And I hope that this plan does that. Thank you.
I am currently a student at Troy High School. I am a senior in the IB program. And I'd just very briefly like to basically state the fact that being currently in the program has actually helped me quite a bit, but I am friends and close to a lot of people that were in the ethnic studies program. And I know many people that are in the ELL classes, and a lot of the students in the English learners classes do feel like they are being segregated because they do get pulled out of their courses for 4 hours a day, and they do just learn basic English. They don't really learn more than that. They're not taught what people in English classes are taught. They're not taught American history or world history. They're basically just taught English. And to me, personally, I believe that that isn't right. That shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't be pulling out people that need to learn English to specialized classes. We should actually be letting them have hands-on experience with the courses they're supposed to be in. This way they can, yes, have the English learners classes, but also have the courses that they need to graduate. Because a lot of the students that aren't graduating on time are English learning students. Because of the fact that they're being pulled out of classes for 4 hours a day, then they need to be taking courses online in order to catch up. And online courses don't provide enough information for them in order to graduate on time. Also, my older sister was part of the Mexican American Studies program at Pueblo High School. She graduated in 2008, and when I saw her go into this program, they did so many team building exercises, so much history was learned, and I just saw her basically be able to get better contact in her core curriculums as well in her Mexican American Studies classes. Because of the fact that she was learning so many different areas, she wanted to be able to incorporate what she learned in Mexican American Studies into the American history classes, into her English classes, into her science classes, and everything. So I just believe that these courses, ELL should still be put in place, but it should be formed into the curriculum rather than just be a separate part of the curriculum. And Mexican American Studies and ethnic studies should be put back into the curriculum because it really just helps students grow and see what their potential could be. Like the IB program. In the IB program, we don't only learn American history, we learn what happened throughout the world during World War I, during World War II. In theater, we study different areas of theater through Japanese culture, Mexican culture. So I just believe that incorporating all these different areas into studies really helps the educational process. Myself, I was a student at Pueblo for 2 years. I went to Troy and joined the IB program, and I believe that I've learned a lot more through the vast incorporation of other cultures in my education rather than just the American culture. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else? Good morning. Down.
Good evening. My name is Keisha Coleman. I am a product of TUSD. I am also a parent of TUSD, and I'm an employee of TUSD. I have experienced most of this. I graduated from Tucson Unified in 1989. I work for the African American Student Services Department. Our department offers more than teaching history. We provide academic support to our students. We mentor our students. We teach our students how to be responsible for themselves, to be accountable for their own grades. Our departments are just more than actually teaching the history from our past. Our departments is more of teaching our students how to be leaders of the future, and we work with all students.
My name is Gabriel. I wanted to urge everyone to join me in also thanking the Honolulu people for sharing this land with us. Like I said, my name is Gabe, and I'm a Tucson High alum and TUSD resident and a journalist that I wanted to speak with you from that standpoint. I wanted to also support the Declaration of Intellectual Warriors of the Coalition of Youth, and I wanted to read just one section of it because I think it's also very important. It's called Expansion of Ethnic Studies. With the expansion and implementation of the new Mexican American Indigenous Studies and African American Studies, we demand that Native American, Asian American, and Middle Eastern American Studies be included in the plan. Core level curriculum will be essential for these courses. We believe that all ethnic groups should have a chance to develop their cultural identity by learning the contributions their people have made in the United States, as well as their experiences in this country. And the only other comment I would add is that this is not coming out of nowhere. I think the students that wrote and put this together know their history very well, and one in particular, Middle Eastern American Studies, that they demand be part of the curriculum. It's very essential, this buried, abandoned part of its local history. I know because I reported on it for the Tucson Weekly and The Nation magazine. In 1983, the TUSD school board banned Middle East Studies, banned its books. And for reasons that were straight up racist. I mean, the accusations, which were completely false, shown by independent panels put together by the president of the university that included Middle East experts from Harvard and Princeton and others, as well as Charles Ayers, who is a professor at the U of A. One of the unforgivable crimes that the Middle East Studies program, which the Tucson Citizen reported was in high demand in the schools, was that it was trying to improve the image of the Arabs in the U.S. That's the direct quote from the Tucson Citizen. And it was accused of being anti-Israel, pro-Arab, and part of this pro-Arab conspiracy to control university centers. It's quite insane. Yeah, take a look. It's pretty shameful. And that went away. There was like barely a murmur. And so, what is this? 27 years later, these students who are sort of writing back to our local history to take off where the local community and political leaders failed. And so I wanted to also commend them and support this part of the plan, and I hope that you'll take it into consideration.
I have come down Tanya Alvarez, David Gallardo, Dr. Chuck Ford, and Maria Teresa Mejia.
Good evening, my name is Tanya Alvarez. I'm a mother of 3 students in TUSD. I am also a Chicana therapist. I am licensed in the state of Arizona as a counselor. I've had the privilege of working within the schools as a school therapist. I have also had the privilege of being an ad hoc chairperson for Pima County Juvenile Detention, or PCJCC, for the JDAI/DNC program. And what that is we discussed the disproportionate amount of minority youth that were incarcerated. So I participated in a 3-year study, and some of the things that we found out were that there weren't enough services that were culturally competent within the school systems. And that was one of the barriers to a lot of our students and why a lot of our minority youth, which are including African Americans, Chicanos, Mexican Americans, Latinos, and Native Americans. Those were the 3 populations most affected. And this is specifically in the south side of Tucson. So I wanted to make sure that you knew about the studies with JDAI/DMC for Pima County Juvenile Detention. Hopefully we can make a difference. I am in support of MAS being brought back. I saw my first son within the TUSD system be trapped into juvenile detention instead of being provided the services that he deserved. My second child, she just recently graduated. She was actually a product of the MAS program. She succeeded. She felt a sense of belonging. She was motivated. They were speaking her language, and she understood what they were teaching. My third child, she's 13. She's my Blaxican. She's African and Mexican. She's looking forward to learning more about her culture and taking these classes. What do you get when you educate a student in their culture, a Chicana, for example, and then you just drop her in a different country? My family was a strong Chicano family. They still are. And we were in the military. I grew up 7 years in Spain. And we grew up in a village in Spain. What I was able to do was teach the Españoles. They would say, ¿qué eres? So I was like, pues, soy Chicana. Pues, ¿qué es Chicana? What is a Chicana? The Spaniards would say. I said, well, vivo in the United States. And I gave them the story that my father and my mother taught me. And then they called me Indian. They said, oh, eres India. And that was my realization, that I am more than just a Chicana. I actually have a sense of belonging and a sense of responsibility to my community. That's when my parents said, Tanya, you're going back to your place where you were born and where you came from and all your other ancestors, and you're going to give back, you're going to learn. So my children are here, and what I've learned is I've had to work 3 times as hard, walk 3 times as fast, fall 3 times as much than everybody else that is not a part of my culture or brown. And I'm tired, and I don't want my children to have to go through what I went through to achieve what I achieved. So I do support MAS coming back. Please do what you say you're going to do. Thank you.
My name is David Bayardo, and I'd like to thank you for being here, although I really dislike the fact that you have to be here. And I'm not an educator, I'm not an intellectual, I'm not a politician, I'm just a parent and someone who actually went through all of TUSD in my educational life. I was born and raised here, elementary school, junior high school, I went to on the south side. Sadly, there was no ethnic study available. In fact, a lot of times our language was shunned. I had to go to speech, and later realized that it wasn't because I had a lisp, it was because I had an accent. Now I don't. So, I think there's a lot to learn from that. I think that I was able to get through school. Luckily enough, I was able to roll into a career working in TV and television stations. And was very happy to start reporting on ethnic studies and the progress that was being made. And then was very disheartened to report on the attacks on ethnic studies and the dismantling of ethnic studies. I think that the quality of education is a hollow term. And I think that our educational system, being 1 hour from the border, and increasingly culturally insensitive, xenophobically myopic, the quality of our education should be secure in its goals. It's encouraging to students to have cultural sensibilities, to know where they came from, to know what they stand for. That's the only way they can contribute to our society. That's the only way that they're going to make our town, our state, our country better. Students that know about their roots, that understand how they integrate into the country, that understand what their contributions can be, are what this country needs. Not students who are afraid to speak out about themselves, afraid to use their own language, afraid to contribute to other people by their own experience, by their family experience. I thought that's what this country was built on. Except here, apparently, we don't want that. And I find that very discouraging, considering I have 2 high school age kids and 2 that are younger going into the educational system. I mean, is the onus going to be on me as a parent to teach them all the culture? I don't have that experience, I don't have that knowledge. That's what I need the educational system for, so they can understand where they came from and what they are and how they can contribute to the country as a whole. I believe that that's what we need. I believe that there are only certain people in this educational system that really do not like that. And they work on people's fears and paranoia to make it possible for the rest of us not to have that education. And I just think that's wrong. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and to the panel there. We're certainly appreciative of the work that you're doing in city, and particularly for public education. I was in TUSD for nearly 30 years, or about 30 years, on Tucson City Council for 8 years, and I'm quite interested and busy in the community also. I'd like to just point out that the problem we're having in terms of public education is not only one here in Tucson, but I believe that public schools, public education is under attack. As you look around and see what's happening, you look around and you see that here, TUSD, for instance, somewhere in the neighborhood of $17 million in the hole. Meanwhile, you hear the state legislature and other folks up there talking about providing monies to private schools. Now, why is that, why they're talking about that, particularly when we have problems in the public schools in terms of providing, get enough money that we can run the school. And of course, the desegregation plan that the federal government court is saying that not valid. What are they saying to us? They're saying that, well, we don't like what you're doing there, so we are going to change things. And in terms of the private schools taking over public education, it's a national thing also, in addition to being here. And you look around and see things happen, and I say this and I talk about this type of thing because we must be aware of what's happening with our children. Now, in terms of the programs that are needed, we have to educate all of our children. All of them have the opportunity to become the very best citizens and have the very best jobs possible. And so it seems to me that we needed to get strong now before it's too late. We may ensure that what we're doing here maybe will be something as I guess a reason across the country and other parts of the state happen also. Because, you know, look at TSD. Look at the number of schools that are closed and that's closing. Something is wrong with the picture of these type of things that happen. And so I say to you, and thank you for the opportunity for sharing these few words with you. Thank you.
I'd like to have Kim Dominguez and Adelita de Alba come down.
Good evening. My name is Maria Teresa Mejia, and I am a prodigy of Mexican American Studies. I graduated last year and I am currently studying physiology at the University of Arizona. I want to thank you guys for allowing us to speak to you guys. And I wanted to address Section 3, the transportation. So I am also part of the community who has put together the Declaration of Intellectual Warriors. And in our declaration, we wrote, TUSD is responsible for providing school bus transportation for all students. Students must be provided with school buses before and after school. Providing students with public transportation vouchers is an inadequate form of transportation. The use of public transportation extends the travel time for students It extends the travel time from students, taking time from their studies. So by having that, students are going to not be able to have as much time to study for their classes, which is going to put them further behind students who are privileged and who are getting transportation. For instance, this year, Pueblo had their buses taken away, causing students to take the SunTran. And my sister, who's a teacher there, was saying that her students are not being able to get to school on time, and their grades are dropping because they're not having time to finish their work. Along with that, We, as a community, want to be a part of your hiring process for the people who are going to be like in charge of our classes, the supervisors, and we want to be a part of that since they are the ones that are going to be like making the rules, and we want to be able to be a part of that discussion. Along with that, we are strongly asking for Mexican American Studies along with other ethnic studies to come back. That banner down here that says "Welcome to Tucson High, home of the largest Chicano studies program in the nation," that used to hang in Mr. Acosta's room, and now since we don't have the classes, it doesn't hang anymore. But after you guys bring it back, I would like to see it up again.
I get pretty upset when I have to talk about these things. I've been doing it for far too long. My name is Kim Dominguez. I'm a graduate of Mexican American Studies. I graduated at Troy High School in 2003. Fortunate or not, I've had the pleasure of talking with most of you, and hopefully you recognize me and you recognize a lot of the other young leaders who are here, and you hear our voices and notice that we continue to come, we continue to be a presence. My grandfather is still alive, he's 74. He's in physical pain every day because he's brown. I say this because he was a child farm worker. He picked cotton. And his spine is deteriorating. Every day he's in pain. He has to get injections in his back. And now that he's going through all of this, he's starting to have all these memories of when he was picking cotton. And I'm fortunate enough that I'm able to have breakfast with him and cook food for him and sit down with him, and he could tell me these stories. And so he tells me the stories of when he was a child here in Arizona picking cotton and how miserable it was. It was miserable. He's the oldest of 14. He was never allowed to go to school because he had to financially provide for his family. And that's my history. That's my story. I own that. And I never would have had these conversations if it wasn't for Mexican American Studies. It's because of Mexican American Studies that I value and appreciate everyone's story, not just my own story, not just my grandfather's story. I first took Hispanic Studies at Troy High School when I was a junior in school. And for me, it wasn't, oh, this is Aslan, I want to do the Reconquista, Chicana power. It was, I want to feel human. I want to feel subhuman. I want to feel this pain that I feel because I'm poor, because I'm a woman, because I'm Chicana. I want to feel those things. I just want to feel alive. I want to feel good inside. And I want the people around me to feel good and healthy and happy. I don't want our families and our schools to be torn down and to be broken. And that's what I lived. That was my childhood. Now I have a daughter who's in kindergarten at Ochoa in the south side. We live in Barrio Hollywood. I grew up here. My daughter was born here. I was born here. She takes Spanish and Puerto in Ochoa. Those things are important to me. It's important to me because her history is important for her to know where we came from and where we're going. And if it wasn't for Mexican American Studies, her name wouldn't be Justice. I wouldn't have been intention for her to apply to a magnet school to be able to have these services and to have this program. And I don't just expect for her to identify as Chicana and to have the responsibility of her own people, but to have the responsibility of taking care of the earth, taking care of her community, and taking care of all of us. The students I had in the course with me, and the students who are here, and the students who helped draft that plan were Dona Otam, Yaqui, Black Again, Chicano, Mexican National, Middle Eastern, Southeast Asian, Peruvian, Dominican, queer, women, men, all in between. It's not about Aslan, it's not about claiming these things, but it's about feeling human and connecting with our humanity, and that's what this class offered. And so I hope that people start using the language that it is what it is. You know, people like Stegeman and Hicks, they refuse to acknowledge race, to talk about race. They think that we're being divisive. But my grandfather's stories, those are my stories. And my history, he didn't live that. I lived that. And I don't want my daughter to have to live that. It's time that we start utilizing the capacity that we have to provide services for students that are so needed. That are so needed for them to be able to go to school and to live in this society. I was the first in my family to graduate high school in 2003. The things that my grandfather felt, I feel every day. And it's time to start healing that. Thank you.
Cesar Aguirre come down also.
Good evening. My name is Adelita Grijalva. I'm a Tucson native, educated throughout TUSD schools, Roberts Elementary, Hollinger Elementary, Wakefield Middle School, Pueblo High School, Pima, and University of Arizona. I am also a current governing board member. I think it's important to put some perspective in what it's like to be living in Arizona right now, and specifically Tucson, Arizona. When my parents had me, they purposely made sure that they only spoke Spanish to me. So when I started school in kindergarten, I only spoke Spanish. And that was on purpose. So like, you're gonna learn English at school, but I want you to have a foundation in language and culture. I would never do that to my child now in this district, in any district in Arizona, because I purposely ensured that my daughter was bilingual because I didn't want her to be segregated in a 4-hour block for English language learners. I think that it's important that we appreciate that we're living in a state that is anti-immigrant and anti-public education. And that while I appreciate that this document cannot fix all that is ailing TUSD and Tucson, I think it's important that we address specific issues. And one of them is the specificity in the plan. It is important that we articulate clearly what we mean by Mexican American studies. If that's what we want, we should have that clearly written out in the plan. Because as a board member and as a minority member on this board, it's important that every board that comes after me is positive as to what the intent was. Because I think that there was way too much leeway in the previous plan and way too much leeway for specific boards and different administrations to sort of implement what they interpret. The other issue is the importance of eliminating the 4-hour block and the segregation of our English language learning children. I think that if we get together and work with, look at other examples of other districts and work with our own expertise in our district, we can do a better job with our English language learners. It's important to clearly articulate what we mean by the expansion of dual language, and I think that that also has to be very specific. And the reality that TUSD has objected to certain portions of this plan through the direction of the current board majority. And that majority will be changing in January. So I think it's important that we also keep that in mind. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, everyone. I thank you guys for your time. My name is Cesar Aguirre. I have 2 daughters in the TUSD school district. They're both in elementary school. I was born and raised here in Tucson, Arizona. I come from a very diverse cultural background. I have Apache in me, also Yaqui, European. I have a lot of family from European descent, Spanish European, Italians. My grandfather was born and raised in Wichita, he was born in Wichita, Kansas, and was raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So my background is really diverse. Growing up, I never really knew who I was or where I came from. I always felt out of place. I never felt I belonged. I really never knew who I was. My dad's father used to yell at us if we even brought up the word Indian or Native in the house. Growing up, we were not allowed to refer to ourselves as that because it was beaten out of him as a child. He was educated here in the U.S. and was not allowed to speak his native tongue, was not allowed to speak Spanish or Native. He was not even allowed to think of himself as Native. Now, these are things that have been going on for a long, long time. Now, I don't think it's very prominent now the way they do it, but it's still happening. These things need to be addressed. Now, one thing I keep hearing that I've heard throughout the night is specifics, specifying. I think this needs to be specified in the plan. Mexican American Studies needs to be brought back the way it was with Sean Arce as the director and the teachers that were teaching it at the time when it was dismantled. It is a very successful program and there are facts to prove that. Those facts need to be looked at. Now, another thing I want to look at also is more specifics. How are we going to close this achievement gap? Here, under the section 5C, where it says overview, student engagement and support, Section 8 says, the objective of this section is to improve the academic achievement and educational outcome of the district's African and Latino students. Now, how is that going to be done? Are we going to continue to use the standardized testing, which has been proven not to work, especially in ethnic and diverse cultures? Or are we going to come up with a new way to assess our children and our staff and our students? Another thing is, are we going to give the children in the minority groups the time that they need? Right now, currently, a Pueblo student doesn't have enough time in the day. If you look at the other schools like Sabino or Saguaro, any student from one of those schools can miss a day of school out of the week and still have more time in class at the end of the week than a Pueblo student does all week. Why is that? Especially when Pueblo's, Tucson High, and Choya High School are the schools that are suffering with the low test scores. Those schools should have more time, their students should have more time to prepare for the testing if that's what's going to be used. Thank you.
Jose Gonzalez.
Good evening. My name is Jose Gonzalez, and I'm a former TUSD Mexican American Studies teacher. And I come here and just share some thoughts with you. You know, I was really unsure whether I was going to speak tonight, but in what capacity, whether it's going to be as a teacher or as a parent or as a community member, because that's what I am. I am not from some other people. You know, I don't come from other parts of this country. This is where I'm from. And, you know, long after, you know, Dr. Stegman and Dr. Petticombe have left, I am going to be here. And, you know, I'm a teacher of history. And, you know, it's sad that, you know, that we as minorities have to keep on relying on the feds to come in here and do what's morally right. And this is my granddaughter right here. And I hope that someday, you know, I'm not going to be here teaching, but I am going to be living here, and she is going to be able to take this class with me. Say hi. Hi. Where are you from? Say the desert. Now, so we're from here, and we're not going anywhere. And again, I want to reiterate, you know, this whole idea that, you know, we have to rely on the state or the feds are coming here. And, you know, it's like Nina Simone, you know, what she says, and I've said this, you know, I've said this before, and it's this whole idea that, you know, when she wrote her song and she titled it Goddamn Mississippi. But that's how I feel about Arizona, you know, goddamn Arizona. You know, and what this board has done to my students, and what I saw when they said, you know, Mr. Gonzalez, please teach us what you've been teaching to us. You know, we won't say anything. We'll keep it quiet. And so this is, you know, I've had to live with that, and I go to sleep every night thinking that what these people have done to my students, I'm having a hard time reconciling that. I'm having a very hard time reconciling. And I want to say this, you know, I support the Declaration of these intellectual warriors, and I am proud to say that they are my part of who I am. They are my seeds. And as the great Frederick Douglass once said, it is easier to build a strong child, which is what we did, Dr. Stegman, than to rebuild a broken man. And that's what we've been coming here time and time, and that's what we've done the whole time, okay? Now, I support the Declaration. I support ending this segregation, you know, of our students. I taught at Rincon High School, and I'm going to take a little bit more time, because I think I deserve that. I teach summer school at Rincon, and I've got kids from all over the all over the world that I teach ELL students, and they're having to take summer school. They go from 6 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night in the summer in order to get to graduate, in order to be able to graduate. And so that is a travesty. You know, we're talking about segregation, yet we're segregating these kids. And it's Tom Horton that implemented this. And again, I asked, you know, why isn't the Cabrera report, you know, why isn't it on TUSD's report, TUSD's website? You know, they're trying to hide this, and this is what we have to deal with. This is what we have to deal with. And that Cabrera report must be on TUSD's site so people are aware of the efficacy of our department and what we did. And I am very proud of that. What we did as teachers. You know, I'm being sued for defamation of character. You know, what I had to go through in trying to get a job in this district, I should be suing you all for defamation of character. You understand? And certainly, you know, what my colleagues and I are going through, we are being harassed by 1010 officials to this day. You know, where is, you know, this has to stop. And long after you all leave, we're going to be here. We're going to be here. And so, you know, it has to be clearly stated, because people like Dr. Staten are going to misinterpret that, and they're not going to allow people to do the right thing. You have to state that the MES has to be reinstituted. I humbly submit, because politicians are going to twist that, and then again, you're going to have to come in here and try to fix what the politicians, local as well as state, have done to our children. So I ask that you be specific and that you reinstate, Sean Arce as well as Rene Martinez, and you bring back the Mexican American Studies teachers. Thank you very much for your time.
Nicholas Dominguez and Daniel Montoya.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Dominguez, and I was a former student of TUSD, Tucson High, and currently a student at the U of A. And I'm here to talk to you, obviously, first Unitary Status Plan. I'm here to speak in regards to the ELL section. I also believe that that 4-hour session of segregation should be taken out, and there should be more emphasis on